All right, everyone, gather round, because tonight we've got some stories that are truly out of this world, and I mean that quite literally. Now, for those of you who've seen a thing or two in your time, who've witnessed history unfold right before your eyes, get ready to add a new chapter to your book of experiences. We're diving deep into the fascinating realm of unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, as they're more commonly known. And our first stop takes us to sunny California on a day we all hold dear, the 4th of July. Think back to your own 4th of July celebrations. The smell of barbecue in the air, the laughter of family and friends, and of course, the grand finale. Those spectacular fireworks painting the night sky with bursts of vibrant color. It's a tradition as American as apple pie and baseball. But what if, amidst those dazzling displays, something else was joining the party? Something that wasn't made here on Earth? That's exactly what happened to one of our very own viewers, John Lopez, down in Chatsworth, California, back in 2018. John was doing what so many of us do on Independence Day, enjoying the fireworks with his loved ones right in their backyard. Year after year, their home provided the perfect vantage point to witness the aerial artistry. But this particular year, the light show they observed wasn't quite the red, white, and blue they were expecting. Instead of the familiar booms and crackles of pyrotechnics, their eyes were drawn to something far more startling. John described them as lights, but not just any lights. He said they looked kind of like fireballs just floating around in the sky. Imagine that for a moment. Not the fleeting trails and explosions of fireworks, but persistent glowing orbs hanging in the air. And then things got even stranger. According to John, different ones kind of appeared out of nowhere, just materializing in the vast expanse above them. It's the kind of thing you might see in a science fiction movie, not over your own backyard during a holiday celebration. Now, the video John sent us, and trust me, our team has taken a long, hard look at it, shows these lights up close. And what's remarkable is their behavior. They don't just drift lazily. They swoop and flicker, turning on and off in what seems like a deliberate manner. And they weren't just a flash in the pan, folks. These lights reportedly hovered in the sky for over half an hour. Think about that. 30 minutes of unexplained aerial phenomena right there for a family to witness. But here's where the story takes another uncanny turn. This wasn't a one-time event for John. In fact, it was the second 4th of July in a row that he and his family had seen these mysterious lights. You can even hear the disbelief and awe in the voices captured on the video. A woman, presumably a family member, can be heard exclaiming, "Mom, the UFOs are back. I swear to God, I swear." And John himself echoes the sentiment, "They're back. Trip. Damn." It's clear from their reactions that this was not a normal occurrence, not something they could easily explain away. So everyone was kind of shocked to see that, John recounted. I bet they were. Imagine having that kind of repeat performance of the unexplained right over your home during a national holiday. This left the Lopez family, understandably, with a lot of questions. What in the world had they just witnessed? And the big one, why was it happening again, specifically on the 4th of July? It's a head-scratcher, isn't it? It makes you wonder if there's some sort of connection, some reason these objects might be drawn to our Independence Day celebrations. To help us unpack this mystery, we turn to Alexis Brooks, a well-respected journalist and author who spent years delving into the world of UFO encounters. Alexis brought an interesting perspective to the table. We've heard many stories of repeat showings up repeatedly to individuals, she noted, suggesting that some people seem to have recurring experiences with the unexplained. But the fact that it was at the same time and in the same place, I haven't heard too often. This detail certainly adds another layer of intrigue to John's account. Alexis then posed a question that many of us might be thinking. You wonder if the fireworks display may have actually attracted these anomalous objects to the scene? It's a fascinating thought. Could these lights in the sky, our colorful aerial explosions, be some sort of beacon for something not of this earth? Are they drawn to the spectacle, perhaps out of curiosity, or maybe for reasons we can't even fathom? Professor Michael Masters, an anthropologist, offered another intriguing theory. He pointed out that there does seem to be a spike in UFO sightings around the 4th of July. Now, why would that be? His thought is that these potential visitors might be trying to figure out exactly what we're doing. Think about it from an outsider's perspective. We're celebrating our independence by launching what essentially look like bombs into the air. It's a rather unique ritual, isn't it? Professor Masters even touched upon the idea of a galactic zoo model, the notion that we might be under observation by otherworldly beings who are simply fascinated by our strange customs. It sort of conjures up ideas of this galactic zoo model, that we're being watched by these otherworldly beings, fascinated by this strange ritual of independence where we explode these bombs in the air. It's a humbling thought to consider ourselves as subjects of observation in a cosmic sense. But then comes the logical question. Independence Day has been around for over 200 years. Why would UFOs only start showing up to watch now? Professor Masters offered a potential answer to this as well. One theory is that we've only recently become interesting as a species now that we're building space stations and supercomputers. Perhaps our technological advancements have reached a point where we've caught the attention of civilizations beyond our own. It's a thought-provoking idea that our progress might be signaling our presence on a larger cosmic stage. Now, we weren't just going to take John's video at face value. Our team of experts took a deep dive into the footage to see if there were any earthly explanations. And the first thing we wanted to know, was this video even real? Could it have been faked or manipulated in some way? Our experts in video forensics analyzed the recordings meticulously, and we did detect several consistent signatures across the video recordings, both made using similar make and model devices, our narrator explained. So there is no evidence that we detected that these files were manipulated. That's a crucial point, folks. The videos appear to be legitimate recordings of something real. But what was that something? Could it have been just our typical 4th of July light show, seen from a different angle or under unusual atmospheric conditions? One of our experts, whose insights we'll hear more from later, stated definitively, "I don't detect similarities with what I would expect to see from fireworks because fireworks are a momentary lapse of light in the sky. They explode and then they vanish. There's just simply no evidence of that in these recordings." This suggests that what John and his family witnessed was something quite different from your average firework display. The persistent nature of the lights, their controlled movements, these are not characteristics of typical pyrotechnics. So, if it wasn't fireworks, what else could it have been? our experts started looking at other possibilities, things we see in our skies all the time. Mark D'Antonio, the astronomer and video effects designer we mentioned earlier, considered things like planes or those popular sky lanterns. Aircraft have to have Federal Aviation Administration mandated lighting, Mark explained. We don't see that here, so I'm ruling out an aircraft. That makes sense, doesn't it? Airplanes have specific lights for safety and identification, and these objects didn't seem to have them. What about sky lanterns? They're those paper lanterns with a small flame inside that float gently on the breeze. Mark addressed that possibility as well. The sky lantern is slow and moves on the prevailing winds in the sky. These objects are not doing that. They're moving any which way they want, and so that rules out sky lanterns. The controlled and seemingly independent movement of the lights in John's video doesn't align with the behavior of a simple sky lantern carried by the wind. Next up, our aviation expert, Tim McMillan, weighed in on whether these could have been flares, perhaps dropped from a military aircraft during a training exercise. If they are flares fired from an aircraft, you would see them spread out, Tim explained. I would say flares would be pretty unlikely. Flares are designed to illuminate a specific area and typically disperse as they fall, which doesn't seem to match the cohesive and controlled movements of the lights in the video. Finally, there's always the possibility of drones. They've become increasingly common in our skies. Could someone have been operating a swarm of drones with bright lights attached? Maybe, our narrator conceded. But Tim McMillan also pointed out a limitation of current drone technology. Drones operate off of battery power, and so if you're operating a very high-powered, high-illumination light, that's less time that your drone is going to be able to stay in the air. The extended duration of the sighting, over 30 minutes, combined with the brightness of the lights, makes a drone explanation less certain. So, after careful analysis, our experts could only say that these lights might be drones, but they couldn't be certain. And when the experts can't give a definitive explanation for something in our skies, well, that's when it falls into the realm of the unexplained. So for now, our verdict, our narrator concluded, these are genuine UFOs. It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Are we truly living in the land of the free, under a sky that's exclusively ours? Or could we be, as Professor Masters suggested, part of a galactic zoo, putting on a show for an audience far beyond our comprehension? The events over Chatsworth that 4th of July in 2018 certainly give us food for thought, and as we continue our journey into the world of the unexplained, you'll see that this is just the tip of the iceberg. The skies above us hold more mysteries than we might ever imagine. Stay with us, because we've got more incredible stories coming right up. Welcome back, everyone. If the events over California left you pondering the possibilities, then buckle up, because our next stop takes us south of the border to the skies above Mexico, where a seasoned airline captain had an encounter that will make even the most grounded among us raise an eyebrow. Picture this, March 19th, 2020. Captain Eric Delgado is piloting a cargo plane, cruising at altitude en route from Monterrey, Mexico to Memphis, Tennessee. It's an hour into the flight, the kind of routine journey that airline professionals undertake countless times. Captain Delgado is even taking a moment to enjoy his dinner in the cockpit. But then, something completely out of the ordinary catches his eye. Instinctively, he reaches for his device and starts recording. The footage Captain Delgado captured is truly something to behold. You can hear the sheer astonishment in his voice as he narrates what he's seeing. "Oh man, that is phenomenal!" he exclaims. And then, addressing his co-pilot, "Dude, I'm so glad you saw that." What had grabbed their attention so dramatically? According to Captain Delgado, this object seemed to drop straight down from above, appearing suddenly in their airspace. And its behavior was just as perplexing as its arrival. "And you saw it drop out of the sky and just stop?" Captain Delgado marvels, a hint of disbelief in his laughter. "This is awesome, man." But the strangeness didn't end there. Captain Delgado noted a peculiar characteristic of this aerial anomaly. "And it's pulsating too, man. That is nuts." A pulsating light appearing out of nowhere, dropping rapidly and then stopping mid-air. It's the kind of description that immediately conjures images from science fiction. As Captain Delgado continued to observe this object, he provided more details about its appearance. "It looked like a lighthouse in some thin fog as it's turning," he described. "A powerful, rotating light in the sky, unlike anything he had ever witnessed in his years of flying." Understandably, this unexpected encounter had quite an effect on him. "So that really got my heart going," he admitted. "Now, imagine being in the cockpit of an airplane, thousands of feet in the air, and having an unidentified object suddenly appear and shine a light directly at your aircraft. It's not just a curiosity. It could potentially be a serious safety issue." Captain Delgado himself recognized the potential danger. That could have been a safety issue because initially this thing is turning into us. The thought of an unknown object maneuvering directly towards a commercial aircraft is certainly unsettling. But then the object's behavior changed again. Instead of approaching, it seemed to settle into a position alongside the plane. And then it decided to park itself off our left wing tip, Captain Delgado recounted. For a full 25 minutes, this glowing orb maintained its position, pacing the aircraft as they continued their flight. It's an extended period of observation, ruling out many fleeting phenomena like meteors or brief atmospheric effects. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it was gone. Captain Delgado described its departure. At that point, the fear was gone, and then it was just, I was flabbergasted. It was just wonderment, I guess. The initial apprehension gave way to awe and a sense of the extraordinary. It's a reaction that many who report such encounters describe. A shift from concern to a profound sense of wonder at witnessing something beyond our everyday understanding. Now, here's a detail that adds another layer of intrigue to Captain Delgado's sighting. The part of Mexico where this encounter occurred is a relatively short flight from central Mexico's so-called Zone of Silence. This is a rather peculiar place, folks, a region where locals have long claimed that radio transmissions are inexplicably blocked. And what's even more relevant to our discussion tonight is that the Zone of Silence has been a hotspot for reported UFO sightings for centuries. It's a place steeped in unexplained aerial mysteries. And the connection doesn't end there. Our team uncovered a fascinating piece of corroborating evidence, a video recorded by the Mexican Air Force back in 2004. This footage reportedly shows similar objects in the same general region. It makes you wonder if there's something about this area of Mexico that attracts these unidentified aerial phenomena. Captain Delgado himself seemed to draw a significant conclusion from his experience. "I guess now," he stated, "I can definitively say we are not alone." It's a powerful declaration from a seasoned professional, someone whose job relies on a clear understanding of the skies and the objects that typically inhabit them. Naturally, we wanted to get expert opinions on Captain Delgado's compelling video. We shared it with some of the top aviation and video analysts in the field, and their insights are truly fascinating. We turned once again to Mark D'Antonio, our astronomer and video effects designer, who has spent over 15 years meticulously analyzing images and videos of the unexplained. His first order of business was to rule out any obvious celestial misidentification. Could this glowing orb, for instance, have simply been the planet Venus, which is sometimes mistaken for a UFO due to its brightness? Number one, Venus doesn't move around on the sky like they saw it, Mark explained, and this object shone a light inside the cockpit of the aircraft. Planets don't have spotlights on them. That's a pretty definitive dismissal of a natural astronomical phenomenon. Next, Mark considered the possibility of space debris. After all, there are an estimated 130 million pieces of space junk orbiting our planet. Could this have been a meteor or a fragment of a satellite burning up in the atmosphere? But look at how this meteor leaves a long tail, and only for a few seconds, Mark pointed out, referencing typical meteor imagery. That's not what this thing does. The prolonged presence and controlled movement clearly distinguished Captain Delgado's object from a fleeting meteor. Our aviation expert, Tim McMillan, was equally convinced that this was not another aircraft. If you had another plane that was flying in the vicinity, it would be operating the lights that are on either wing, so your green and red lights, Tim explained. Anybody who's looked up in the sky has seen those blinking, and so you don't see anything else but that. The absence of standard aircraft lighting on the object in Captain Delgado's video further strengthens the case that it was something unconventional. And what about drones? We discussed their limitations in the California case. Mark D'Antonio reiterated those limitations in the context of this sighting. Now, at 576 miles an hour, he stated, referring to the estimated speed of the object relative to the aircraft, we can also rule out drones, because there is no drone that I know of that goes 576 miles an hour at 37,000 feet. That kind of speed and altitude is well beyond the capabilities of commercially available drone technology. But perhaps the most inexplicable aspect of this entire incident is what happened when Captain Delgado panned his camera to the cockpit monitors. It may be the most inexplicable part of this whole incident, our narrator emphasized. The glowing orb never appeared on Captain Delgado's collision avoidance system or on air traffic control's radar. Think about that for a moment. A substantial object, clearly visible to the pilots, yet completely invisible to the sophisticated detection systems designed to keep our skies safe. You would see, if there was another aircraft in the vicinity where they're looking, which is in this region, you'd see a plane on this, Tim McMillan explained, pointing to the radar screen in the footage. So we don't see that. So there's definitely not another aircraft. The lack of any radar signature is a significant piece of the puzzle. It suggests that whatever Captain Delgado and his co-pilot witnessed was operating with technology far beyond our current understanding, or perhaps it wasn't a physical object in the way we typically perceive them. You now have a case that's really, truly mysterious, our narrator concluded. This looks like there's mystery here. That was a UFO. And Captain Delgado's own words echo that sentiment. You can look at the footage and form your own opinions. I'm not the story. The footage is the story. So, America, what's the answer in this case? Is it proof of something truly extraordinary? Well, it wasn't a planet. It had no wings or standard aircraft lights, and Captain Delgado clearly stated it followed him. While we didn't have visual confirmation of the spotlight he described, the expert analysis rules out conventional explanations. Our verdict? A UFO, which, as we've said before, technically just means an unidentified flying object. All right, folks, we've journeyed from the sunny skies of California to the intriguing airspace over Mexico. Now, our next story takes us across the Atlantic to the serene and often mysterious landscapes of the English countryside. Forget bustling cities for a moment and picture the quiet solitude of a forest in Devon, England. It was there, in September of 2020, that a landscape gardener named Ben Landricum stumbled upon a scene that looked anything but natural. A scene that sparked international headlines and drew comparisons to some of Britain's most enduring UFO lore. Ben was simply enjoying a camping trip, seeking the peace and quiet of nature. He ventured about 15 minutes into the woods, expecting the typical sights and sounds of a forest. But as he walked deeper, a sense of unease began to settle upon him. It felt really eerie, Ben recounted, and the woods were really dense and just felt a bit of an eerie place. It's that feeling, that sense of something being not quite right, that often precedes encounters with the unexplained. And then he saw it. Then it was this big, like a crater, like a perfect circle. Not the kind of gentle clearing you might expect in a forest, but something more defined, more impactful. The video Ben captured shows an oval-shaped clearing marked by uprooted trees scattered haphazardly. But here's the thing that caught everyone's attention. Upon closer inspection, there was no evidence of professional logging or landscaping. These weren't neatly felled trees. They looked as though they had been forcefully pushed over. When we slow down the video, the extent of the damage becomes even more apparent. The clearing spans approximately 60 feet across, with trees blown down right next to others that remained perfectly upright. It's a selective kind of destruction, almost as if a significant force had been directed downwards in a concentrated area. This immediately raises some serious questions. Did something large land here? What could have caused such a localized and forceful impact? Ben himself was understandably perplexed. Well, it's definitely a mystery, he admitted. Who knows what it could be? But I've never had that answered back to me straight, saying what it is. So I still believe it's a UFO landing site. His conviction, fueled by the unsettling atmosphere of the woods and the unusual nature of the clearing, points towards an explanation beyond the ordinary. And Ben wasn't alone in finding this scene reminiscent of something else. As journalist Aaron McCarthy explained, after Ben's video went viral, it made international headlines, with many drawing parallels to another well-known English phenomenon associated with potential UFO activity: crop circles. To me, whenever I see something like this, I think of things like crop circles because they are just really pushed down with some force, Aaron noted. It doesn't look natural. The way the trees were flattened, the distinct shape of the clearing. It all echoed the intricate and often inexplicable patterns found in farmers' fields. This naturally led to comparisons with one of Britain's most famous and enduring UFO incidents, the Rendlesham Forest incident of 1980. This event involved sightings of unexplained lights in the sky near a U.S. Air Force base in Suffolk, becoming known as Britain's Roswell. So, had Ben stumbled upon the footprint of a British UFO, a tangible mark left behind by an encounter with something from beyond our world? Or was there a more terrestrial explanation lurking in the woods of Devon? To unravel this mystery, we once again turn to our panel of experts for a closer look at Ben's intriguing discovery. Our military analyst, Tim McMillan, considered the possibility of a secret or experimental aircraft crashing in the area. If you know about any type of aircraft falling out of the sky or crash lands, you're going to have an impact crater and you're going to see debris, Tim explained. So you would see a lot more going on. Definitely some physical evidence that would support any type of crash of anything. The relatively clean nature of the clearing, devoid of significant wreckage, seemed to rule out a conventional aircraft crash. Now, some suggested that a meteor strike could have created such a scene. After all, meteors can pack a significant punch. However, Tim McMillan countered this possibility by considering the timeline. If such a strike created a crater here, it happened long enough ago for most of the displaced Earth to fill in. But the trees in Ben's video told a different story. But these trees look like they were felled recently. They're still green. That doesn't really suggest that there was enough time for all of that meteor impact to have filled in and covered over in that kind of time. The freshness of the downed trees seemed inconsistent with an ancient meteor strike. If it wasn't a meteor, what about meteorology? Could a natural weather phenomenon be responsible for this strange clearing? We turned to Deanna Hintz, a meteorologist, for her expert opinion. It doesn't take a terribly strong tornado to knock a tree over, Deanna explained. Another possibility is what's known as a microburst. For those unfamiliar, a microburst is a localized column of sinking air within a thunderstorm and is usually less than 2.5 miles in diameter. Microbursts can produce damaging straight-line winds exceeding 100 mph, similar to the intensity of a weak tornado. And that is something where a really intense downdraft forms within the thunderstorm, and it comes crashing out of the storm and then spreads out really violently, almost like you think about like a bomb went off. The description of a sudden, localized, and powerful downward force certainly seemed to fit the scene Ben had discovered. While tornadoes might be less common in England compared to some parts of the United States, microbursts are a phenomenon that can occur anywhere thunderstorms develop. Deanna looked into the weather history of the Devon area around the time Ben made his discovery to see if either was a plausible explanation. So, when I looked at the radar, there were a series of intense thunderstorms that were causing flooding and all sorts of damage throughout this part of England, she reported. This crucial piece of information, the presence of severe thunderstorms in the vicinity, provided a strong potential link to a natural cause. Based on the evidence, Deanna offered her expert conclusion. My best guess is that, given the damaged pattern, a concentrated gust of winds happened to tear through that particular part of the forest and knocked those trees down. The localized damage, the lack of debris associated with a crash, and the confirmed presence of intense thunderstorms all pointed towards a powerful, localized wind event. So, our verdict, based on Dr. Hentz's analysis? We're going to say this seemingly supernatural event can be explained by the weather, most likely a hyperlocal wind burst of 90 miles an hour or so. A microburst, a sudden and powerful downdraft, could indeed create the kind of damage Ben witnessed, with trees being forcefully pushed over in a concentrated area. However, despite the scientific explanation, Ben himself remained unconvinced. But Ben says that can't explain the eerie, otherworldly feeling he experienced in those woods, our narrator pointed out. For Ben, the unsettling atmosphere and the seemingly deliberate nature of the clearing still suggested something more mysterious at play. To him, the mystery remains unsolved, and that's often the case with these encounters, isn't it? Even when a logical explanation is presented, the personal experience, the gut feeling that something extraordinary occurred, can be hard to shake. The Devon Forest clearing serves as a reminder that sometimes the most compelling mysteries are those that touch us on a personal level, leaving us to ponder the possibilities even when science offers an answer. But the world of the unexplained is vast and varied, and our next stop will take us to the stark and stunning landscape of the American Southwest, where a discovery of a different kind captured the world's imagination. Stay with us. The journey continues. All right, folks. After our trip to the enigmatic English countryside, we're now heading back to the States, specifically to the breathtaking red rock desert of southern Utah. In November of 2020, this starkly beautiful landscape became the backdrop for a discovery that sent ripples of intrigue across the globe, sparking a whirlwind of speculation and captivating the imaginations of millions. It all started with a routine mission. A helicopter crew accompanied by a state biologist was conducting a count of bighorn sheep, those majestic creatures that roam the rugged terrain of Utah. As they flew over an almost inaccessible canyon, something utterly unexpected caught their eye. They decided to land, and what they found was, in the words of one of them, "This is wild," and wild is certainly one way to describe it. Nestled within the secluded canyon was a large, shiny, silver object. The video and photographs taken by the crew made it undeniably clear. This thing did not belong there. It stood out against the natural hues of the red rock like a beacon of the unknown. Initially, the exact location in Utah was kept secret by authorities, understandably wanting to avoid a rush of curious onlookers. But in our digital age, secrets rarely stay buried for long. News of the discovery leaked out onto social media, and it was quickly dubbed the Utah Monolith. The name itself conjured up images from science fiction, most notably the enigmatic structures from 2001, A Space Odyssey. The secrecy surrounding the monolith only fueled the public's fascination. Among those captivated was U.S. Army veteran David Serber. The air of mystery acted as a personal challenge. "I'm like, okay, I'm going to find this place, right?" David recounted. Driven by curiosity and a sense of adventure, he embarked on a quest to locate the elusive object. His determination led him to a long overnight drive. It was probably 11 p.m., and I drove for 6 hours straight through the night to try to get there. Following clues gleaned from the internet, David navigated his way deep into the rugged canyon country. "I don't see anyone," he can be heard saying in his video, emphasizing the remoteness of the location. And then, just after daybreak, as he rounded a corner, there it was. "There she is!" David exclaimed, a sense of awe in his voice. "And it's just there." I was like, oh God. And it was just a really cool experience to have a few minutes alone with it. The footage he captured provides a closer look at this strange and striking object. Standing tall and gleaming against the ancient red rock, the monolith was a smooth, triangular prism with a reflective surface. Its presence in such a remote and seemingly untouched location immediately sparked a torrent of theories. Eric Grundhauser, reflecting on the cultural significance of such structures, noted, "There are few things more iconic than a monolith. Whether we're talking about the monolith that started 2001, A Space Odyssey, or the obelisks of ancient Egypt. The very shape and unexpected appearance resonated with deep-seated cultural archetypes of mysterious, powerful objects. And naturally, the conversation quickly turned to the possibility of extraterrestrial origin. So, when this mysterious metal monument popped up, it really sparked people's imagination. The idea being that, possibly, one of the ways that aliens would contact us would be to leave an information-laden monolith for us to investigate and discover. The thought of an alien calling card, a silent message left for humanity to ponder, was undeniably captivating. One particular focus online centered on the material composition of the monolith. Was it made of something alien? The belief was that they are comprised of something called a metamaterial, or a metametal, our narrator explained. Metamaterials, for those unfamiliar, are engineered materials with properties not found naturally on Earth. Special composites of metal strands and ceramics are created to absorb radar for stealth technology. And, intriguingly, there have been reports from alleged UFO crash sites claiming that the recovered craft contained alloys with anti-gravity and cloaking characteristics. The idea of alien metamaterials gained mainstream attention in 2017 with a New York Times article. According to the New York Times report, Bigelow Aerospace was contracted by the government to store possible materials from alien craft. MJ Banias explained, the implication was that the U.S. government might already be in possession of and studying such advanced materials, perhaps with an eye towards developing next-generation weaponry. So, could the Utah monolith be made of the same kind of otherworldly materials? David Serber, during his solo encounter, decided to conduct a rudimentary test. I had a magnet with me, mainly because we were trying to figure out what type of metal is it, he recounted. The result? Not sticking. This simple test suggested that the monolith wasn't made of a ferrous metal, at least not on the surface. He also tried to determine if it was a solid object or hollow. His finding? Not solid. This raised further questions about its construction and purpose. So, if it wasn't made of conventional metal and it wasn't solid, what was it made of? And perhaps even more perplexing, who put it there? The mystery deepened when similar monoliths began appearing in other remote locations around the world. In Romania, on the Isle of Wight, and in Sweden. Was this some sort of coordinated global event? Were these objects alien calling cards popping up in isolated spots across the planet? Or could there be a more human, albeit still very creative mind, behind these enigmatic structures? We once again turn to our experts for their insights. Tim McMillan, our military analyst, acknowledged the initial allure of an extraterrestrial explanation. And when you first see this, you can't help but think of some type of extraterrestrial technology. However, his analysis of the available evidence led him to a more terrestrial conclusion. However, there's nothing about what we're seeing in this video that leads me to believe it's manufactured from any kind of exotic materials. Unlike the reported properties of UFO metamaterials, the Utah monolith didn't defy gravity. It stood firmly planted in the ground, and it certainly wasn't cloaked. It was highly visible and reflective. David Serber, during his up-close inspection, noticed details that further hinted at a more earthly origin. In person, David noticed fingerprint smudges and ragged corners as well as other signs of terrestrial construction. These weren't the hallmarks of advanced alien engineering. Tim McMillan pointed to one specific detail that, for him, was a major giveaway. The telltale signs of those rivets would make me believe this is man-made, no matter how kind of anomalous its appearance is. Rivets, those simple mechanical fasteners, are a common element in human metalwork. Their presence on the seemingly futuristic monolith strongly suggested a terrestrial origin. If it was human-made, then why go to all the trouble of placing it in such a remote and difficult-to-access location? Kathy Strain, our anthropologist, offered a thoughtful perspective. "I think it's a message of beauty, of artwork," she suggested. "It maybe makes you reflect more that I wanted to come here for the wilderness." She touched upon the idea of land art, where artists use the natural landscape as their canvas and create installations in isolated settings. Some artists, like Donald Judd, have indeed championed the idea of wilderness as the ultimate art gallery, creating large-scale sculptures in remote locations to encourage contemplation and a connection with the environment. Could the Utah monolith be a similar artistic endeavor? Ultimately, determining the exact nature and origin of the monolith from a video alone proved to be impossible. Ultimately, you're not going to be able to determine exactly what this object is until you get it into a lab and under in-depth analysis, Tim McMillan concluded. And then, just as mysteriously as it appeared, the Utah monolith vanished, literally overnight. It was there one day and gone the next, leaving behind only a patch of disturbed earth. This sudden disappearance only added to the enigma. So, until the monolith is found again and subjected to scientific scrutiny, our verdict remains grounded in the realm of human possibilities. So until it's found and we can get it into a lab, our verdict: this is not an alien artifact, our narrator stated. It's either a human artwork or a hoax. Either way, it's a compelling conversation piece. The Utah monolith, while not definitively extraterrestrial, certainly captured the world's attention and sparked a global dialogue about art, mystery, and the possibility of something more. But as fascinating as these individual incidents are, sometimes the most compelling evidence comes from repeated sightings and official investigations. And that's where our next story takes us, to a country with a long and rich history, a land that has served as a bridge between cultures for millennia, and perhaps, just perhaps, a meeting point between our civilization and life beyond the stars. Stay with us. We're heading to Turkey.